Hey everybody, welcome to the video. It's Friday, June 11th, and we're breaking down this massive 13-game slate that we have over on DraftKings today, and it's a pretty fun one. We have lots of good pitchers to talk about and lots of good offenses as well, so it's a very loaded slate. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. You probably wouldn't be watching this video right now. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave your comments down below if you do have any. And if you want to follow me over on social media or find me using the handles in the bottom right corner of your screen. And if you want to help support the channel over on Patreon and get some extra content, link is down below for that. Spreadsheets, projections, optimizers, rankings, Discord community, all that fun stuff. Link is down below. But I think that's it for the plug. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as per usual, we'll start with the pitchers and move on to the bats. And we have lots of good pitching to talk about. I didn't even put Max Scherzer on here, and there's some other good pitchers as well, but it looks like it's going to be raining once again in D.C. You guys played yesterday's slate. Max Scherzer was slated to pitch, and that game ended up getting rained out. And it looks like we could see that happening once again. And with all the other good pitching options we have today, it's like, why even mess around with that? So unless we get news that it's going to be good to go, I probably am not going to mess around with Max Scherzer. But if it is good to go, don't love the matchup versus the Giants, but he's still one of the better pitchers in baseball. But when you have options like Jacob deGrom, Brandon Woodruff, Lucas Giolito, they're all cheaper. It's like, why even bother for the most part? So anyway, we'll start with our aces here. We'll start with Jacob deGrom, $11,300. He is the ace of all aces in baseball. I mean, if you're looking at his numbers, it looks like you're playing a video game on rookie mode on the show or something. Like, it's crazy what he's doing. And with the MLB cracking down on substance stuff, Jacob deGrom is, from what all the teammates say and people verifying, and I believe it, they say he is just all natural. He is just that good. He doesn't even need that stuff. So I'm fully believing in them. And I mean, what's to not like about Jacob deGrom here? I know the matchup versus the Padres maybe isn't the most exciting thing in the world. There is some good bats in that lineup. Obviously, Tatis is one of the best players in baseball. But that being said, they only have a 2.65 implied team total here. Is a very heavy favorite. 9.5 K prop as well. And speaking of the video game numbers, here they are. He's around 100 on his fastball. You will never be surprised seeing Jacob deGrom get over 100 miles per hour on the gun. The guy throws absolute gas. 0.62 ERA, which is insane. Obviously, that'll come up at some point, but his xFIP in Sierra, as scary as it sounds, it's not that far off his .62 ERA. 1.5 xFIP, 1.65 Sierra. Some absolutely crazy numbers, striking out nearly half the batters he is seeing this season. Doesn't walk anybody really, over 14 Ks per 9. Around 100 ISO given up, good amount of ground balls, and really just doesn't give up much power whatsoever. Half a homer per 9 and some really good ratios. So I'm not even sure why I'm telling you guys these numbers. I don't think you need me to tell you that Jacob deGrom is a good play. If you have the money for him, great. I will try my very best to get Jacob deGrom in my lineups. Now, it's going to be very chalky, so if you want to go a different direction in tournaments, you can, but there is not many more rock-solid things than getting a good game from Jacob deGrom in all of DFS sports. Like, yeah, there's a lot of variance in baseball and other sports as well, and guys that are in good spots can always fail, but how often does Jacob deGrom really fail? Like, it's pretty much every single time he smashes. He is that good. He's the best pitcher on the planet. I would roster him with full confidence. I know he's expensive, but I think you can make it work today. Brandon Woodruff, $10,400. I'm not sure if you're going to fit but like a 10K guy plus Jacob deGrom. We'll have to see how roster construction looks. And there's some really good bats on this slate today, so maybe that's not going to be the easiest thing to do. So you might have to end up picking one of these guys and rostering them, one of the cheaper SP2s that I do have listed. If you can make it work, great, but I don't think you absolutely have to do it on a 13-game slate. But Brandon Woodruff here has got a great spot here versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of the worst offenses in baseball. They have virtually zero power this season. Super heavy favorite, only a 2.88 implied team total here, so not too far off of Jacob deGrom. And if you're looking at all these pitchers we talk about, yes, there's going to be some red and orange numbers that do show up, but you got to keep in mind it's comparing up to like 3 aces here, and all these guys are pretty good for the most part. Like the worst K you're looking at is a 27.2% from Charlie Morton. Even then, that's still really good. So don't be too concerned if you see some red numbers here. It's just because it's such a tough comparison between these handful of guys. But Woodruff this season, he's been elite. 1.4 ERA, 2.6 xFIP, 2.8 Sierra, 32.5% K rate. I know being right beside Jacob deGrom, it's kind of a tough act to follow, so his numbers aren't going to look as good, but it's still pretty darn good. I mean, Brandon Woodruff's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I don't see why that's not going to happen here versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of the worst offenses in baseball, like I just talked about. Woodruff gives up zero power, only a 0.62 ISO this season, half a homer per 9. And the Pirates this season versus righties have a 118 ISO. So I'd be very, very surprised if Brandon Woodruff gets taken deep here. I'd be surprised if he gives up over a run. I mean, I'd kind of be surprised if he gives up a run in this game, to be honest. Obviously, that Could happen, but it should come with nearly double-digit strikeouts, and I like him in all formats. And Lucas Giolito, $10,100. He is the lucky winner of getting to face the Detroit Tigers offense, who did very good yesterday. I did like him on that early slate quite a bit. Was not expecting 8 or 9 runs. Is that what they got? Like Jake Rogers had like nearly 30 points. That was kind of crazy. Homer and a triple. But anytime you got a good pitcher facing Detroit, I think they are viable. I will use Detroit sometimes when they are against a pretty subpar pitcher for the most part. But Lucas Giolito is not a subpar pitcher. I wouldn't say he's in the elite level like Jake DeGrom, Brandon Woodruff, those kind of guys. Zach Wheeler this season, Max Scherzer, Shane Bieber, but I'd say he's like right below that tier, and he's obviously been very good as well. Now, he's been a little bit shaky in some games, but he still boasts over a 30% K rate, 3.5 xFIP, 3.45 Sierra. Well, it does give it up a near 200 ISO this season, which is a little bit concerning, but there's not much power in that Detroit lineup, so I think he should be just fine. If I had to pick between Brandon Woodruff and Lucas Giolito, I'm going with Woodruff all day in my opinion, but I still think they're both fine options. Then getting into the SP2s here, we have Tyler Mahle, $7,900, and Charlie Morton at $7,500. Both guys get pretty good matchups here. Now, Tyler Mahle's in a really bad park for pitching. Charlie Morton's in a great park for pitching, so kind of polar opposites there, but I'm not concerned about anybody in the Rockies lineup here. I know we're in Great American Small Park, which is great for bats, but the Rockies outside of Coors Field, never really interested in that offense, and I typically pick on them. And Tyler Mahle is a pretty good pitcher. He's been having some pretty good games recently, and does boast a nice K rate, 28.2%. The walks can get a little bit up there. We've seen in the past past few seasons, where walks have been an issue for Tyler Mahle and has historically struggled versus lefties. But for the most part this season, I don't think he's shown us anything we should be too concerned about. The underlying numbers do look pretty good. The hard contact rate's the worst of all these guys, but even 31% is not terrible. Only a homer per 9 in the Rockies. Their WRC plus overall this season, which does take into account of like park factors, only 77, which is the worst of any team here. So don't think we should have any issues with Tyler Mahle. I think he's a nice solid relief pitcher. And the Rockies have a team total below 4 here, which is pretty good in, I was going to say Coors Field, but it's kind of like Coors Field in Great American Small Park, just not quite without the altitude, but definitely a great park for bats. Then Charlie Morton, $7,500. He is pitching in Miami, great park to pitch in, only a 3.5 implied team total. They did very well yesterday versus Chichi Gonzalez, but typically most teams will do pretty good versus Chichi Gonzalez, so I'm not going to really look into that too much. And while Morton is never like a super rock solid all-star pitcher or anything, he's pretty steady for the most part. His ERA is at 4.2 this season, but he's getting a little bit unlucky considering the xFIP's about a run lower. Sierra's at 3.5, healthy 27% K rate, gets a lot of ground balls. Doesn't allow much hard contact at all, only 25.5%, which is lowest of all the pitchers we've talked about so far. And the splits for the Marlins versus Rays this season, pretty pedestrian for the most part, 26% K rate, 133 ISO, and 89 WRC plus. So pretty good spot here for Charlie Morton. I didn't talk about the Rockies versus righties, but pretty bad this season in the WRC plus department at only 69. So again, like with these pitchers quite a bit, I think they both make sense for salary relief if you want to pair them up with one of the ace level pitchers, if you can't afford a double spend up for the aces tonight. But with that being said, guys, I think we'll move right on to the bats, and there's definitely some good bats to talk about on today's slate. And as always, we'll start with the catcher position, and since there's so many good spend up pitchers today, we're probably not going to go super pricey at the catcher position, so I listed a bunch of cheap guys here. Now I went with Tucker Barnhart first, $3,600, because I want exposure to the Reds today. Now, I wouldn't say he's an absolute lock to start. We could see Tyler Stevenson since it's a lefty on the mound for the Rockies, so maybe Tyler Stevenson gets back into the lineup. With Joey Votto being back, it's going to kind of take him away from full playing time, so we'll have to see how that goes. But if he is in the lineup, he has been hitting lefties very well this season. I believe last time he batted fourth, although I think things might change a little bit there. But if he's in the lineup, I like him. If Tucker Barnhart's in the lineup, I'm not really too scared of the lefty-on-lefty matchup. We've seen Kyle Freeland struggle versus lefties in the past. Obviously, I prefer the righties here, but I like pretty much all the Reds for the most part. As you can see, they have a team total close to 6, one of the best hitting parks in baseball. Sign me up for all the Cincinnati Reds today, especially the righties. Like them quite a bit, but you can play lefties as well. Like guys like Jesse Winker. I mean, if you're playing in tournaments, I wouldn't leave him off. Because I don't really think Kyle Freeland's going to last long anyway. So let's see a righty in the bullpen at some point. The Rockies bullpen's not that great. And then a couple of cheap options here, and just on stacks I like, which is something I typically do. Like if you're looking for a cheap catcher to use, and you like an offense today, just throw in the cheap catcher if you can, just to get cheap exposure to them. Because I mean, if you like an offense quite a bit, you're assuming they just keep rotating through the order quite a bit, so they should get plenty of at-bats. But anyway, Martin Maldonado's $2,700. The team total seems a little high for the Houston Astros here. Like, I love the spot versus Matt Shoemaker. Last time he pitched, I was all over, like, stacking against him, and I think he gave up, like, 8 runs in the first And wasn't that versus the Royals? He got like absolutely smashed in the first inning. I forget exactly how many runs he gave up, but I'm not sure he's going to give up nearly 10 runs again. But this is a good spot for the Astros, man. I like stacking against Matt Shoemaker quite a bit. Definitely one of the worst pitchers on the slate. And team total above 6 here. You'd think they're playing in Coors Field, but they're not. They're playing in Minnesota. But you can sign me up for the Astros here. You get the guaranteed not getting a bet as well since they are on the road. And looking at Shoemaker's splits this season, it is pretty ugly, and that's why we are trying to stack against him today. He's got a really nice 7.2 ERA, 5.2 xFIP, 5.2 SIERA, only a 14% K rate, giving up over a 200 ISO this season with a close to a 30% hard contact rate. So send me up for the Astros. I know Martin Maldonado sucks, but you're just getting cheap exposure to him. Ryan Jeffers, $2,500, filling in for Mitch Garver. Jose Urquidy, not the worst pitcher out there, but the Twins do have a team total of around 5 today. And I think these numbers might switch a little bit. I'm recording this video a little bit earlier than I usually do, so usually the lines switch when I wake up in the morning, so we'll see. I'm sure the Astros are going to hold this above 6. That could come down, but either way, this should definitely be one of the better stacks. And I like the Twins here versus Urquidy. He's a pitcher that has flashed upside in the past, but he's not like a guy I'm going to fade any bats against for the most part. Like his numbers this season are fine. 3.7 ERA, 4.2 xFIP, 4.1 SIERA, 21% K rate. Doesn't really walk many guys, but I'm not too scared of using Twins here. He is giving up an ISO close to 200 this season, which I know it shows up red here if you're looking at the sheet, but just because some of these other pitchers are giving up in the 200s and whatnot, so I still think the Twins make some sense here. Like the team total, not going to be super hot like it was yesterday for the Twins. I think it was like nearly 100 degrees for that game. Looking like we're going to be around 80 degrees, but that's still fine for hitting, and this isn't the worst park to hit in as well, so don't mind those Twins. And then dropping into the first base, I like Yuli Gurriel, $4,500. Wasn't liking any of the super expensive spend-up options at first base today. So why not just give me another bat here versus Matt Shoemaker. Love all the Astros today. And Yuli Gurriel has been fantastic this season, batting .335, WOBA 400, ISO close to 200. So again, stacking all the Astros for the most part. I'm going to sound like a broken record saying that throughout the video. Jared Walsh, $4,200. I usually like stacking against Merrill Kelly. The Angels are my favorite stack of the day, and whenever you take Mike Trout out of the lineup, it always hurts them overall. But I think you could definitely use some bats here in Arizona. Looking at Merrill Kelly's splits this season, I wouldn't say he's a terrible pitcher, but the one glaring issue he has is that he will give up some hard contact. Like his ERA is above 5 this season. I guess you could say he's getting a little bit unlucky considering his xFIP and SIERA is about a run lower. Does have a 20% K rate, not really walking too many guys, but giving up a 170 ISO and a 36.7% hard contact rate, which is the highest on the entire slate, only behind who the Dodgers are going against, and Fulte, who's giving up a 37.5% hard contact rate. So there's definitely some power upside to be had here for Merrill Kelly, and playing in Arizona, I think the Angels bats do make some sense, and Jared Walsh has been playing some pretty good baseball this season, especially versus righties, 255 ISO, average close to 300. Like that price point, I think the Angels make a decent, maybe contrarian stack if that's what you want to call them. I don't think they're going to go completely unowned here, but they definitely won't be as chalky as some other teams on this slate. Then Denny Santana, he has been very bad this season. He's cheap, and he should be leading off here since there's already on the mound for the Toronto Blue Jays, but he has been bad. 116 batting average, 228 WOBA. The ISO is fine at 186, but that's about the only good thing he's been doing so far this season besides that 60% fly ball rate, but it's been pretty ugly here for Danny Santana. Only I believe 28% hard contact rate, which isn't exactly that great either. But if you're just looking for a cheap leadoff hitter, team total at 5. I don't love Boston today, but I think some of these guys versus Ross Stripling make some sense. He's a pretty average pitcher at best. He does have his good days, so he definitely have his bad days as well. So if you're looking for some cheap Boston exposure, Santana makes sense as he should be leading off here. Max Muncy dropping at second base, also eligible at first base as well, with $5,500. Like I just talked about, Fulte's the guy that will give up plenty of hard contact, and I think the Dodgers make all the sense in the world here. One of the better stacks in the entire slate. I wouldn't say Dodger Stadium isn't exactly the best place to hit him, but Fulte is the guy we can pick on. Team total of 5 here. Muncy's been really good this season in terms of hitting for power. 255 ISO this season. 162 WRC plus 420 on base percentage. He's very, very expensive. I would only get there in full-on Dodger stacks for the most part, unless you just have a lot of money to spend at second base, but do like the individual matchup here for Max Muncy. I think it's a good home run spot. Jose Altuve, $5,400, like all the Astros here, something I haven't already said. Really like picking on Matt Shoemaker here. And Jonathan India, $4,200 if you're looking for a cheaper second baseman. I like all the Reds today, like the righties here versus Cal Freeland. You can play lefties as well, but should be leading off here. We've seen him do that versus lefties recently. the price isn't overly expensive. Looking at his numbers this season, you wouldn't exactly get too excited about it, but the on-base percentage at 370 is not terrible. 260 batting average, 155 ISO. I mean, pretty pedestrian numbers, but leading off for a team that's got a team total close to 6 today in a hitter's park, yeah, sign me up for all the Reds righties. You can play the lefties as well, as I've already mentioned. And then going down to third base, you have Alex Bregman, 5,500 bucks. I would prefer lefties versus Shoemaker, just because like the lefty on righty matchups here, but you can play anybody. I mean, righties, it makes no difference for me for the most part. I would prefer Bregman versus a lefty, but again, all the Astros are in play here. They have the highest team total in the slate. Bregman's been pretty good this season. Hasn't hit for a ton of power, but does have a batting average close to 300. And yeah, sign me up for all the Astros. Get those guaranteed ninth inning at bats as well. Josh Donaldson, 4,600 bucks. Again, not super in love with the Twins here versus Urquidy, but he's a pitcher you can pick on in the right matchup, and I think the Twins do make some sense here. Team total close to 5, and they're not overly expensive, so it's not that hard to stack them. And Donaldson's got some decent pop. Also hit the game-winning homer yesterday versus the Yankees. Eugenio Suarez, 4,500 bucks. He is a guy that will strike out quite a bit. Doesn't hit for a high batting average. We've seen him slip in the order this season. 30% K rate this year. Not really walking a ton. Does have a nice fly ball rate. We know he can hit the ball hard. And the one thing he's done well this season, he has over a 200 ISO, so everything else is pretty darn bad. But again, Reds righties make a lot of sense here versus Kyle Freeland and that bullpen. Then going down to shortstop, we have Carlos Correa, $5,200. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but he's been playing good baseball this season, and he's going against Matt Shoemaker. Sign me up for all of these Astros. Jorge Polanco, $4,000. I've already been talking about the Twins. I have to reiterate myself, but he should be leading off here with a righty on the mound. And he's shown some decent pop this season, even though the other numbers really aren't overall that good. Jose Iglesias, 3,100 bucks. He's been playing well recently. Not a guy that's going to hit for a ton of power, but he's got a decent batting average and should make a lot of contact here. And I like stacking a little bit against Merrill Kelly. Not my favorite stack in the slate, but if you're looking to get decent ownership on a stack that has some upside, they're on the road, so you get the guaranteed inning at bats. I think the Angels do make some sense. You can throw Justin Upton in there as well. I don't have him listed on here, but I wouldn't hate him in a full-on stack. Probably wouldn't go there in anything else besides stacks. I didn't really see the need to go there in cash games. But he has been playing pretty well recently. He's just randomly found some power this season, even though he's really in the late stages of his career. Going down to the outfield here, we have Nick Castellanos, 4,800 bucks. This is probably my favorite play on the slate, to be honest. He has been crushing left-handed pitching. We're in a great park for hitting. We have a team total close to 6 here. And looking at the numbers, I mean, like an MVP candidate, really. 355 batting average, 440 WOBA, 267 ISO, over 1,000 OPS. Not really striking out a ton. He's going to get a lot of hard contact, 42.5% hard contact rate, which is only 0.1% behind Trevor Larnach this season, who has a smaller sample size. So Castellanos has been crushing baseball this season, even in versus lefties specifically. It gets even better. It's a smaller sample size, but a 495 WOBA, 405 batting average, and a 333 ISO with a 214 WRC plus. If Castellanos does not hit a homer, this is kind of similar to my Stanton. What I said about Stanton yesterday, I was like, it would make no sense to me if Stanton doesn't get a homer on this slate today. And first at bat, he got a homer. I mean, it was like an obvious chalk call, but the numbers just made all the sense in the world. The numbers make all the sense in the world here for Castellanos to pretty much be in one of the best spots in the entire slate to hit a homer. So if he doesn't go deep, I would be very shocked. But even if he doesn't go deep, I think we're going to see some extra base hits out of Castellanos. And 4,800 bucks, definitely one of, if not the top play on the entire slate. Nelson Cruz, $4,800. I prefer him versus righties, and his numbers haven't been quite up to par this season that we've seen in the past. I'm not sure if it's due to him aging. I mean, at some point he's going to fall off, but still good numbers this season. I mean, I say that he's falling off a little bit, but he still has a 280 batting average with over a 200 ISO. But for Nelson Cruz's levels that we've been accustomed to what he's been at over the course of his career, it's just a little bit off, but still fine nonetheless. If you are stacking the Twins, really hard to leave off Nelson Cruz. Cody Bellinger, 4,700 bucks, like the lefty on ready matchup here versus Folty, a guy that will give up plenty of hard contact. Alex Verdugo, $4,300 as part of that Boston stack, which isn't my favorite stack on the slate, but guys like him, Devers, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, they're all fine. And if you're doing a full-on Boston stack, Jordan Alvarez. Actually, I have 3 Houston Astro outfielders in a row here, so instead of talking about them individually, we'll just group them all together. But all these guys, for the most part, have been solid this season. Cal Tucker's not a big batting average guy, but does have decent power. Will hit for high batting average, and I just feel like all their prices are a little bit too low, and I would assume they're going to be very popular. I mean, you could honestly make just all 3 of these guys in the outfield and make that like for cash games. It could work out, but then again, you're going to leave off a guy like Nick Castellanos, which is not something I'm really willing to do on this slate. I feel like he's a near lock, in my opinion, for playing cash today, so you're probably going to have to pick just maybe one of these guys. And if I am picking one, it's going to be Alvarez here. I just feel like he's still too cheap at $4,200. He should honestly be close to 5K. I know he will strike out a little bit. 25% K rate this season isn't really walking whatsoever, but around a 300 batting average with over a 200 ISO just seems a little bit too cheap in my opinion, especially if this team total holds around 6. Even then, it should be in the upper 5s if it does fall. So loving all the Astros here. All these guys are fantastic plays, and they're all similar in price. So if I had to rank them, it's going to be how they're priced, but they all make excellent plays in my opinion. And Trevor Larnach here, $2,100, dirt cheap. I should probably fill in here. He is a lefty. He's going to the lefty on righty matchup here versus Jose Urquidy, and he's pretty much free. He hits in a good spot in the order. I do like the Twins today, so if you're stacking the Twins, I mean, he's just an absolute freebie in the outfield spot for you, and he's been okay this year. I mean, the batting average isn't great at 260, but it's not terrible either. In the 173 ISO, I mean, really can't get too picky for a guy that's $2,100. So the numbers are fine enough for me. It's a pretty good spot for him. So yeah, I could see him being popular if he does end up hitting third because he's free, and the Twins are a pretty good stack in my opinion. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out the Patreon down below. You get extra content over on there. Follow me over on social media if you want to. I'm going to be posting my NASCAR video later this evening around 7 p.m. Eastern if you want to check it out. We have the All-Star race this weekend, so it's going to be a pretty fun one, lots of wacky rules, and it's my favorite DFS sport, so I'd recommend checking out. I think it's a really good time playing it. But yeah, I'm going to stop rambling. Hope you guys enjoy the start to your weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.